Hello guys, this is Joshua Hawes. As you can tell by the title of the video, I'm doing a review for Ghostbusters Afterlife. So, I recently got to see the film, like a few days, like literally yesterday at the time of this recording. So I'm just going to give you my thoughts in this review. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, turn notifications so you never miss a video. As a reminder, my Hawkeye review is going to be one full season because the amount of stuff I'm reviewing today, and I'm already 4 episodes there. I think it'd just be easier to do a full season review. So let's get started with the good. And all I have to say overall is that this is just a great film. This is a great movie. This is a great Ghostbusters film. This is just a great watchable film that plays this very, especially with the sequel coming out so long after the original, because Ghostbusters 2016 doesn't happen in this timeline. They pretty much forget it existed. And that isn't set in the same world anyway. So this is set within the same world. The original two Ghostbusters films is based in the year 2021, which is a change because this film was supposed to come out in the year 2020, but they made specific changes to change it to 2021. So that's just what they made decision-wise. But this is just a great Ghostbusters movie because of how far away it is released from the original. It plays a very difficult game of being a new, unique storyline without rehashing all the things, and still being a Ghostbusters movie. That's some stuff loads of long-lasting franchises do struggle with. This balance between nostalgia and new, fresh storylines within the world is an incredibly difficult thing to pull off nowadays, but this movie does that brilliantly. They do have the older characters, but the newer characters are the main characters for this film, while also making them feel important in their, and their past and their journeys. And it's also a very emotional film. This has some really emotional moments that, because of the style of the first two films and what they needed to be, didn't have, but this film does, because this is how the series has kind of developed and how the storylines have developed. Because as we know by the trailer, the main two characters main two characters' grandfather is Spengler, the Ghostbuster, who of course the actor unfortunately passed away a few years ago, I think now. So it's also, that is specifically designed as a tribute to him, and they pay tribute to him really well. They kind of although he's not in the, of course, he's not an important part of it at all, because this film is also, despite it's also being a thing, he's still an incredibly important person, and what he did and the sacrifices this character made highlights him as a really good person, because of the sacrifices he made that impact the rest of the film. And that's one of the things that makes this such an emotional story, is all of that. Is the sacrifice he's made, the people who pushed away for the benefit of them and the world. It's actually very touching and emotional. The action, although it's not the centre of it, obviously, is really good, especially when you get to that final stage of the film, where you get quite a really good payoff to everything going on in this film. And when they introduce the new characters, it's fun, it's enjoyable, they do play a role, but they're nowhere near the centre of attention. And it is generally an emotional story. And I love their balance they were able to tell of having a huge end of the world scale, but also very small scale at the same time, because it's this tiny forgotten town. It feels just unique because sorry, it feels incredibly unique because of that. And this film is incredibly interesting. The cast, the new characters are all great, and they just fit in. And a great thing about this film, despite how different it is, it also fits in really well, which is great. So let's get into the mix, and this is just some stuff mix isn't necessarily stuff I dislike, but this stuff you might. There is times where the nostalgic might bang a bit too much over the head. It usually doesn't do that, but near the end, when we're getting the conclusion of this film, although then once again I don't think they're the center of the film. That's when the nostalgia does heal up, like pick up a bit. So that might be something that could annoy you, but for me, I loved it because I like the new two films. Although they play impact in the finale, they are not the main source of it. They are not that involved in it. It's just they're used in nostalgia, but they're used in a way that makes it more powerful and not forced, in my personal opinion. So yeah, and that's kind of what I have to say. The only negative I have going out of this film is that, especially near the final act, at times it banged you a bit too much over the head with similarities to the original Ghostbusters film. Although I said in terms of nostalgia, I thought most of it is fine, but especially during that final battle, that final act, it was fine for most of the time, but sometimes, plot-wise and everything, it felt a bit too cram you over the head with it because it's similar to the original Ghostbusters. A little too much in that sense. That's my only real flaw, is within that final act. Although I really enjoyed the final act and I loved this movie, I felt like the plot to lead to the final battle within that last act is a little too familiar. It's it's really familiar. But I don't hate it. It's most of the time I'm fine with it, but sometimes it just visually looks too similar, and their plots and stuff like that. Sometimes it looks a little too over the top, but most of the time I really liked it because it made sense. It made sense within the story. It didn't feel like they were doing it just for nostalgia to get you to like the film. No, they trusted that the story and the characters and the relationships would work. So when there is a very crammed references to the original in it, which at times, most of the time, were really good, I want to mention, because it actually got you excited to what you're about to see. But at times, it can, especially certain shots of what happens, feels very similar. And I understand some of that is intention. And most of the time, I want to stress this is done completely fine. I haven't got an issue with it. It's just one of few scenes, because a lot of the time the shots just look too familiar. If they change up the shots to give a new modern flavour, it would be really good. And sometimes as well, although a lot of the time nostalgia, it feels like sometimes the nostalgia when Michael plays does crank and do hard. Most of the time it doesn't. I want to make that very clear. But at times they play the original music to make you think of the past films and not exactly what's going on. Most of the time it's fine. Most of the time it makes sense to what's happening because it is a Ghostbusters film. So I loved it most of the time. Just some scenes it felt a bit unnecessary is what I'm trying to get at, especially with the story I'm trying to tell. But I want to make it very clear, those are very nitpicky criticisms I have, because the majority of the time I think this nostalgia is used perfectly and I loved it. But at times it felt a little bit, just a teeny little bit too much. It feels like I've complained about this movie quite a bit near the end, but about the nostalgia. But I want to make it clear, the nostalgia was used really well. And just at times, there were just a couple of scenes and moments I felt like they pressed a little too hard. But overall, I loved this film. I think it's might be one of the best films to come out this year. No Way Home might knock that off, but I think this was an incredibly strong film. And as soon as I saw the first trailer for it, and it was announced for 2020, which obviously didn't happen, I was incredibly excited for this film. Like, it just looked great, and everything I wanted that the trailer showed, and because the trailer made you feel like it was going to be a film that respected the past, but didn't cram you over the head with nostalgia. It was a completely unique story. That's what made it feel like I watched the film, and that's exactly how I feel. Like, it was better than I thought it was going to be. It was just a great time. Overall, I'd give this a 8.5 out of 10. I think it was an incredibly great film. It paid tribute to that Ghostbuster Spengler, who's the actor, where the actor's unfortunately no longer there. They portray his character in a way that truly is as a tribute to him. And overall, this is just a fantastic movie. If you are a Ghostbusters fan, you need to watch this. And even if you're not a Ghostbusters fan, this is still a really good movie. Like, it's just a great movie that makes sense. So, overall, those are my thoughts. And if you've seen the film, let me know in the comment section what you thought about this film. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Turn notifications on so you never miss a video. I'll see you all on the next one. Bye, guys!